Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spirit School. I am so excited today that Anthony Mrocka, who is a medium on the East Coast of America, who I have been following on social media and YouTube for years, has agreed to be on Spirit School. Thank you for coming, Anthony.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So I would really love if you could just start with your journey to mediumship. Like, what made you get interested in mediumship? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I will say this. I am not someone that believed in mediumship at all. I am not someone I was a full-blown skeptic. I always say that. Only because I just never uh as a young age, I don't remember, seeing spirit in any way, and that actually messed with me in some way because in the beginning when I started reading books about the subject, people were talking about how they saw spirit when they were young or they had these weird experiences. And I don't remember, to be honest with you, I just don't remember a lot of my childhood. The most I could remember back to, or like my conscious thought, is like fifth grade.
Mm.
I had a very emotional upbringing. My dad left my mom for my mom's sister, actually, as weird as that might sound. There, so, and that was when I was 2 years old. So I must intentionally kind of black out, or I don't think about certain things. So I don't remember my childhood experiences. And it was in my, a big part of my story also is drugs and alcohol. I was in and out of rehabs, halfway houses, and through 12-step programs for probably since I've been 20, 21 years old.
Mm.
And I would go years of sobriety, then I would relapse, and then I would kind of go back and forth for a while. And so the reason why I'm saying all that is because it wasn't into my 30s when I relapsed again. I was sober for about 6 years, and I relapsed again, and I was on probably about a 2-year hiatus, or run, I should say. And I needed, I was rock bottom again, and I needed to get sober again. It was very clear to me, and to a lot of my friends and family. And when I got sober this time, I started to pray, and I really started to pray. And the funny thing is, I just didn't have any sort of religious kind of upbringing
Mm.
there. But I always believed in a power greater than myself. But I didn't know, I didn't believe in a religious dogma. Let me put it that way. So I always believed in a God, and there was a power out there that was greater than myself. But I didn't believe in religious dogma. But this time I started to pray. And it was just a simple prayer of, why am I here? Use me as, your will. Because I should be dead. I should have been dead up at that point. Through my addiction, I had just major health implications through drugs. I trashed my trashed. I crashed my car head onto a telephone pole.
Mm.
I was shot at by a police officer in Fairfield, New Jersey. There, which knocked me at the actual him being right behind me. It knocked me unconscious, flat. And so there was all these things, and I was saying to myself, why, like, asking God, like, why have you kept me here? I had a lot of friends that have overdosed or died, and for some reason I was still here, and I didn't understand why. And that was the prayer, really. There, and long and behold, oddly, um, after I said that prayer every day for about a week straight, and I was back into sobriety, and I was back in the 12-step program and reconnecting with friends that were sober. Um, it was like synchronicity. Synchronicity took over. There was a power that took over that, again, I couldn't explain at that time. Looking back now, I see it was spirit. And people started to like come out of the woodwork, like just oddly, like, and hand me something. And like someone handed me a CD of, believe it or not, it was a Christian pastor. And when I listened to it, it was 3 CDs. And when I was listening one time driving, it was like this guy was talking. I felt like God was talking to me there through this outlet of this Christian pastor. And so through that, I then started to learn, how to meditate, and I kept praying, and oddly, just these weird experiences started to happen, and I taught myself how to meditate. And one night when I was meditating, I started to hear and see things. I started to hear and see things that didn't make sense anymore. And what the weird part is now I'm sober. So I'm sober. And how am I going to go and tell anyone? You know what I mean? Like, how am I going to tell people I'm seeing and hearing things? Because they're going to think I'm high again on drugs. And so I kind of kept it up to myself. And oddly, then someone out of nowhere came and told me this story about Mother Mary, about that Mother Mary saved me. And I was like, who's Mother Mary? I didn't understand what she was talking about. And she's like, the Mother of God. And sure enough, went through this. I don't want to go into that whole experience, but I brought a pink rose to Mother Mary, as they told me, because that she had saved me there in that way. And as I continued and dived into meditation, this person that told me about Mother Mary told me I should go for a reading. And I'm saying, what? What do you mean a reading? What's a reading? And she's like, oh, a psychic. And I wasn't really a believer, but it's funny, at that time, the person I was with a friend, and he saw all these things. He was also sober. He was just getting sober too. So we were kind of using each other to attend, meetings and hold each other accountable. And so he was like, dude, you have so many all this weird stuff going on. You should just go. And it was so bad. I was so rock bottom. I didn't have a bank account at that time. And so I had to actually bring the money that the person for the psychic, I brought it to the girl that told me I should go, and she set up the appointment. I had to bring her the cash so that she could pay for it. So I did this phone reading. And sure enough, I got on the phone with this lady, and it was like a half-hour reading, and she was validating a lot of things that I was going through at that point. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And so we got off the phone. I was like, oh, that was good. And all of a sudden, about maybe a week later, that the woman that set up the appointment actually called. She texted me back and said, have you been thinking about that psychic? I was like, no. And she was like, well, she wants to speak to you. And as I was typing, because this is how skeptical my mind is, she wants more money. She wants my money. I
Upselling
was
you.
about to, yeah, exactly. I was like, I tell her I don't have any. And as I'm typing it, the text came back, and she said she knows you don't have any money there, but she needs to speak to you. So I said, all right, do it for Wednesday. It was like Saturday. And she's like, no, she wants to talk to you tomorrow. Lo and behold, I got on the phone with her. She said, ever since your reading, Spirit has brought you up every reading I've done this week. And so there's a message here. And so she, tuned in, and she gave me the message of that this is what I was, I have this sensitivity, and I was going to start having weird things happening to me, and that to call her. She gave me her number. She would never charge me again, and I was going to have questions. That's what Spirit's telling her to do. And I started to, you know what I mean? It was like, thank God. There was a synchronistic moment, because there was an answer to, I can't tell everyone what's happening to me, because I'm afraid they're going to think they're going to lock me up. You know what I mean? They're going to think I'm back on drugs again. I probably at this point, maybe I had like 60 days sober. And so she tells me all this stuff. She gives me all this stuff, and says I'm going to start having weird experiences. And sure enough, within a few weeks, I started having even more weird experiences. And it was undeniable then at that point. I would walk around, I would walk by someone, and I feel like I would know everything about them. And it freaked me out, because I thought I just knew the person. I'm like, no, I have to know this person. I was a bartender. That's the funny part. So I came from, I've done a lot of jobs in life, but in that relapse there, I was a nightclub bartender. I was in very popular nightclubs here in New Jersey. So I just figuring that, oh, they must have been at my bar, or I know them from, the club scene or whatever else. But I would know, it was like I know the most intimate things about the person. That's what was getting weird there. And, that's really where it started. That's how it all began. And I couldn't deny these experiences. And again, it's funny, because when I teach now, I tell people all the time, I teach from experience, and I need experience for me to believe something, what I mean? And so mediumship, I still have a skeptical mind, but I 100% believe, because it's the validation of the evidence that we provide to a sitter or to a client or to a family there. That's right on, what I mean? And that alone, gives my skeptical mind something to kind of, oh, okay, good. It's, it's right there. Like, I just need experience to believe things. That's just how I operate. And so I was having all these weird experiences. It was undeniable there. And then someone, oddly, a woman that made me kind of a believer, probably 10 years earlier, that I went for my first ever reading. She, out of nowhere, 10 years later, comes back around in this time period. I run into her, as fate would have it, there, and I'm asking her, because she told me years ago that I should take a class. She was teaching this class on Monday night, and I had this thing, and Oh, what? Right. She wants my money. She just wants me to be in her class for her money. That was 10 years prior to. This lady's crazy. And now I'm in front and center with her. And out of my mouth, are you still developing? Are you still doing teaching development? And she said, ooh, and lo and behold, I start working with her. Actually, and it's funny how spirit works for me, just for me, because I was so skeptical. I go for a reading for her. She says, come and see me, come for a reading. I go for a reading with her. About a week before my appointment with her, she calls me and tells me, plan on being here a little longer. I know, I need to talk to you. And so when she's done with the reading, she tells me, spirit tells me that they want me to help you and develop you. And out of my mouth, again, like, how much? Because she would have said $100. I would have said, this lady wants my money. She says, nothing. This is what I'm being told to do. And I said, oh, okay. So, and that was it. And then I started working with her. She taught me about learning energy and stuff like that. And then eventually I ran in, I found Lisa Williams there. And I studied with Lisa Williams. This is probably 2012, I think that was. And I went to Chicago because she was teaching a class there. And I was in this 3 months class with her. And me and Lisa's seen something in me that, that I didn't see in my own self. And after that class, she stayed in contact. She called me. Within a year, she was on an East Coast tour here in New Jersey, and she was stopping at a big performing arts center here. And so about a week before she called me, a week before that, she called me and said, would you open for me? And I said, can I call you back tomorrow? And literally, that's what I said. Like, most people would be like, oh my God, and I was like, can I call you back tomorrow? And she started laughing. I think she was like, what, And I said, listen, I know I have to do it, but I don't know. I'll call you tomorrow. And so she said, okay. I said, I'm nervous. And look, like I said, that it just kept synchronicities and surrendering just kept going there in that direction. And I couldn't deny, but like I always said, it's not something that I ever thought I would do. It's not something I would ever thought I'd be a professional medium. It's not something I thought I'd be doing readings, let alone stand up in front of a stage in front of 150, 1,000, whatever the case may be, and bring through loved ones there, and provide evidence of the spirit world there. It's not something I ever thought I would be doing in my life.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I was really interested in your story. I think I found you on YouTube and you were on Lindsay Marino's podcast, and she was a mentor of mine too for a little while. And I found you were the first medium other than Colette Baron Reed that I ever heard talk about past addictions. And I came from an addictions background as well. And it really created a purity complex within me for many years where I denied my gifts from 24 when I got sober until 31 when I had my first kid. But I had all these different mediums tell me, you should be doing this, like you need to develop. And I was like, God is not going to talk to me. Like, I am one of the biggest screw ups you've ever met. Like, because
Yeah.
I was, I got into drugs when I was like 14 until I was 24. And I just had this purity complex and I just never felt good enough. And I didn't, even till after I became a medium, I didn't hear other people share a similar story. And did you ever have that purity complex as you were developing?
What do you mean by purity complex?
Like, purity complex for me was like, angels aren't going to talk to me. Like, I haven't done great things with my life, and I've done the opposite of great things with my life at some point. And so I guess for me, not growing up with any kind of religion, kind of having the only religion that I had in my awareness was Catholicism, because my family's First Nations and there's a whole history there, right? And it was a scary religion. And I was like, I'm going to get struck down with lightning. And so that's the only kind of religious belief I knew of at the time. So I felt like I was going to be punished, I guess, so to speak. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I never had that. Again, because I didn't have like the dogmatic of religion there kind of ingrained in me in some way. Uh, to be honest with you, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand what was happening to me. Uh, and it was cool. It was like, once things were happening, it felt like it was like this newfound kind of toy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that mediumship was a toy. I'm saying like a kid that gets a new toy. I was like, let me sit for meditation. You know what I mean? And like my friends would ask me to go out on a Friday or Saturday, and I wanted to stay home and just meditate and read books. And they were like, what's going on with you? You know what I mean? So like, that's what I mean. Like, it was like this new thing. Like I was, very eager to learn. I also, my first year really of development, I came from rock. That's probably the other thing too about the purity thing of it too, is I came from rock bottom. Like I didn't have anything, you know what I mean? So even to the point, like what I was saying, I didn't have a bank account when I had to pay someone for that reading. I had to give someone the money. But I couldn't even, my TV was cut off. So cable was cut off at that time, and so I sat home and meditated and I read books, for my first year, because I couldn't afford TV, but once then I could. I was like, I didn't want it right now because I was so involved in, reading and stuff. It was fascinating to me. All this stuff was fascinating to me.
Yeah, I ended up joining a paranormal investigation group. That's how I spent my Fridays and Saturdays after that. I was like in supposed haunted locations, following the medium, taking notes of everything that they're picking up to try to validate. It was fascinating. I was much the same. I didn't know how to talk to people because I was so into like spiritual stuff at that point. So
Yeah.
we love details at Spirit School. So when you first started connecting, like what did that feel like? Like what did spirit come through? Because for me, I was always very clairsentient, but not understanding the physical differences when spirit was coming near. I was always expecting to see because everyone talked about like seeing spirit, and that brought up a lot of insecurities for me too. So how did it come through for you?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story in the sense of what you just said about the seeing part, because the first woman I worked with, I said that, she said, I want to help you. And I said, how much? And she said, nothing. This is the spirit was telling me to do. And I think I met with her maybe once a week. And that lasted for about 6 months. And then we kind of went opposite ways. It was like, I always look at something in the sense like spirit can use people. And then, sometimes, when that person's not a part of that plan no more, they're not there. So we went our opposite ways. But the funny part, for the first 6 months, I swear, I used to ask her, like, when am I going to see them? When
Yeah.
am I going to see them? And you know what the interesting part is? She never once said to me, "You're not." Like she never explained that to me. So I had this more or less like the spirit world is going to show up right in front of me, and they're going to show me that they were a cop in their uniform and their badge, maybe their badge number there, and I would just know everything about them, and that just didn't work that way there. So, primarily for me is clairsentient and clairaudient. So primarily I hear and feel. I am not. I always say it to people and students too. I'm not. I mean, I am. I say this to everyone. We are everything. You are multifaceted. You are clairvoyant, claircognizant, clairaudient, sentient. You know what I mean? We have everything, but in life we've become primarily to certain things, whether you feel too deep or you're a very visual person or you need to hear things to and I'm not saying it in the sense of our clairs. I'm just saying some people are audible, that they need to hear I love you and not be shown it. You know what I mean? Whatever our thing is in life. So, for me, I'm not really uh again, I just said I'm clairvoyant, but I very, very rarely use clairvoyance in any sort of reading
Yeah.
there. And that messed with me, by the way. That messed with me in the beginning. But besides the fact that I was waiting to see them, like see them in front of me
Yeah,
there,
me
and
too.
no one told me that that wasn't going to happen until later on there. When I started to, like I said, like I would have these weird experiences where I remember one time I was going to meet my mother for dinner, and it was outside on like a sidewalk. It was like an outside table thing, and I sat down, and when I sat down, I walked like too close to the lady instead of the table, and I knew I started to, it was like my whole being, like clairsentiently, I knew I started picking up everything on her, and that's where I was like, what is going on here? So that would freak me out. That kind of stuff would freak me out. I didn't really know what was happening. When I started to develop more, it's interesting. I didn't really go into a development class. It was after I started doing readings, and
Mm.
only because you had brought up too, like me myself, the fear of not being good enough, all that stuff. Like I remember, and at the time, my wife, who's my wife now, I was dating her at the time, and I was working part time, and I was doing readings. I just started doing readings. I didn't advertise or anything. I did a reading for someone that was a hairdresser who was a close friend of mine, actually, a gentleman that worked in a well-known, big salon. And I did a reading for him, and he was blown away. And because he knew me forever, he was like, I can't, how do you just know that stuff about me? so he told, some of the women in the salon, and now all of a sudden I'm through text messages, people are wanting readings. And so I got calls for a bunch of readings within like 48 hours period. And as much as that may sound cool, it wasn't. I freaked out. And
Mm.
I actually said, I don't need, I remember talking to my girlfriend at the time, and she's like, this is wonderful. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I don't even know where the information's coming from. I don't know what I do. And I remember saying this to her, like, everyone can pick up a basketball and dribble, but people get coaches, and those coaches are the ones that, you know what I mean? They learn, and so I ran to the Journey Within, which is Janet Nohavic's church, because I was about 20 minutes, I lived about 20 minutes from there. And I signed up for a development class. And the interesting part of it is, and the class was great. It was great. But eventually they told me that, and it wasn't Janet, by the way, that was teaching, it was a different one. They said that I was doing it wrong. And,
Mm.
it's such an interesting experience, because now I think I look back, and it kind of tried to change me, but then I came back to my original style that I've always worked with, and how I used to read.
Mhm.
And through that, that's why I say now to people about, like, I'm as a teacher, we shouldn't be put in a box. You
Was
know
it
what
a
I mean?
spiritualist church like the
Yeah,
Janet?
it was a spirit. Yeah,
Okay,
it was a
I was gonna ask.
spiritualist church there. And so I look back, and I look back and say, well, why did I go through that? And now I see, you know what I mean? Because as a teacher now, I like people to develop into their own uniqueness.
Mhm.
There, each one of us are unique. Each one of us has a different soul signature, and the spirit world, I feel like, loves the fact that we shouldn't be put in a box, because they can work with each one of us has our ability can be used in so many different ways, and we're all unique to that. And so we need to find our own unique path in our mediumship in some sense.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because a lot of my mentors have been like from Arthur Finley or the spiritualist, but I've never attended a spiritualist church myself. Like anytime I kind of tuned within, like, but it's a church for mediums. I'm like, no, 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 you don't need it. You don't need it. And I kind of stayed away, and I'm kind of glad I did. But going back just a little bit, like when I would be in development circles, like under different teachers, it was like other students were saying, don't you see spirit right there? Like, and I always felt like I don't see them like that. And it kept me back for a very long time. And then a lot of the mentors that I mentored under were clairvoyant, like that was their title. It was like, clairvoyant. And I'm like, but I'm just not, like, I just don't feel. And even still today, years in doing this work full time now, I've just kind of resigned to the fact, okay, I just don't see you. I just feel you. I know of you. I hear you. So it's really validating to hear that. And it's hard going through the development path, not falling into that comparison trap of what other people are saying, how they receive the information, and understanding it's so unique to each one of us, and likely based off of our life experiences and stuff too, right? So
Yeah.
very cool. And then, so how long were you developing before you started doing readings, like for public, like Joe Public?
So do you mean to go like professional,
I
quote
guess
unquote?
like wherever people were exchanging money with you, like.
Yeah. Okay. Um, that's interesting, actually. Maybe I would say about 2 years. I
Okay.
would say about 2 years, and not to say that I wasn't. I think I was doing a bunch of free readings, but then, like, people would give me money.
Yeah.
It was like, no, don't worry about it. I was just trying it out. Again, this is the last thing I thought I would be doing. So I was just doing it, and yeah, all right, come on, come on. Like the people from the salon, they would text like, hi, I would like to set up an appointment. You know what I mean? So and so gave me your number, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, let me do it. And in that video, if you've seen it, the fear and doubt in your mediumship, there that I put up on YouTube, that was what I was talking about there. Because I would only do like one or two practice readings a week at that time,
Yeah.
but I would cancel. I was so afraid. Like, I would text that, like I said, I was working part time, so I would get out like some days two, some days three, it just depended. I was working for a family member that was just doing something part time while I was developing too as well. And I was also, because I was newly sober, I was also volunteering at a shelter here in Patterson. It's kind of an inner city um, in New Jersey here. And so there's a shelter that I was volunteering as a recovery coach and bringing a 12-step meeting in there at that time. So I was doing all this stuff, right? But people would start to hand me money, and I would be, all right, I guess I should start charging. And so I did, but it was like nothing. I think I charged like $60 or something. And in the beginning, the funny thing is my readings would go like an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Like it would like overcompensate. They were supposed to be an hour. And in the beginning, I used to close my eyes, to read. I was doing psychometry. I didn't know it was psychometry then. I had no clue of any of this stuff. You know what I mean? I was reading, but I didn't read about all that stuff. But because people will come, let me have something of yours. Give me your you have a bracelet. Oh, give me that bracelet. There. You have keys. Give me your keys. And I would hold it in my hand. And as I would hold it, I would start to ask, for them, and then information would just start flowing through. You know what I mean? And so, but I shut my eyes in the beginning, probably because I didn't want to see their facial expression there. But I felt more comfortable, and I would sit there, and the next thing I know, it would be like an hour and a half. You know what I mean? It was like way over time there, and that's that's how it began. I guess I was around 2 years, and then, but even so, even with charging, I always went. See, my belief is, and I have a different belief than a lot. I think my belief is about surrender. And because that's been my experience. My experience is surrendering to spirit, to God, to the universe. I don't care what you want to call it. I would call it spirit. I'm there because even when I went up in pricing, it wasn't like I just put a sign on it. Okay, I'm going to charge this now. If I was charging $60, someone handed me 80 by accident. Let me get you change, and they didn't want it. And it would happen 3 times in a row, and then I would be like, okay, I get it. You guys want me to go to this price. And the next thing I know, someone's handed me 100. I went to 75. And the next person, maybe 6-7 months down the road, $100 bill. Let me get you change. No, I don't need it. Thank you. You know what I mean? And that would happen like 3 times in a row. And I'd be like, oh, okay. I guess you want me to change, and I'll go to $100 now. And it was like that to where I am now. I mean, for my whole part of these years of development and going professional, it's always been like that. It's always been like that.
Yeah, there's so many things I want to ask you. I'm like, I'm trying to be strategic here because you say things that just trigger more things. But I'm like, no, I want to go back to that video that you just referenced because, and I heard you and Tony recently, you did a Facebook Live with Tony Stockwell, and I loved every second of it. You guys just like got right in there. There's so many epiphanies that I had out of that conversation. And I loved how you talked about like the fear and the doubt that mediums experience because not a lot of people are talking about it like openly and vulnerably. And I had the same experience as you where I used to cancel readings all the time, or if people canceled, I wouldn't fill them up again. She's like, okay, no, it's all good. And then if I had a shitty reading, I would like overcompensate by going over time because I knew I hadn't met the expectations and I was people pleasing. It would actually get me energy sick. And I always thought like I wasn't meant to do this because I experienced this, but nobody else did. And so I love that you're teaching now, and I love that you have this reference of YouTube videos. I hope that you're going to continue making more. Every time one comes up, I'm like, oh, good, Anthony did another one. But that video saved me so many times because I felt so seen. I was like, okay, somebody else has experienced this and is talking about it. And you're a big reason why I always kept going. I watched that video a lot, and I've even watched it again recently. And you actually made I didn't think I was going here, but you made an interesting comment in that about clairaudience, where you were saying like, I don't even know if like clairaudience like exists because wouldn't we get every name if like clairaudience did? Like, has your philosophy on that shifted a little bit?
I think in my philosophy has shifted on it and all of our clairs, to be quite honest with you. I do feel, my belief is that all information that we glean from the spirit world, that we get from the spirit world or a loved one there on the other side, comes claircognizant. So it's just a knowing there. And if we get the knowing, great. But most of the times after we were given that piece of information there from the spirit world, it then comes through our etheric senses to, again, how you are as a medium. So if you're a very visual person, your own senses are creating that picture. You know what I mean? I don't think the spirit world is sitting there like, let's just show this one. You know what I mean? She needs picture, show picture. You know what I mean? I believe that it's a flow of consciousness, from from the spirit world to us, right? I always think of it in a great analogy as you think of a fax machine. A fax machine, you take a piece of paper, you put it through, it breaks down, it goes in through a wire, and you know what I mean? All this information goes over to another machine, and then it prints it out. It's the same thing. There's a soul there. We're a soul here, soul there. That information is coming through a flow of consciousness. It is now coming, I'm the sensitive, it's coming into my consciousness. We're merging, we're blending soul to soul, whatever you want to say. There. It comes in as a knowing, but now my etheric senses, my body takes over, and it's going to bring through my mind if I need to hear it, clairaudient, which is through my mind, right? There, or the picture, or maybe I'm just going to sense it and feel it clairsentiently in some way, or claircognate, you'll just know it. And the interesting part about that is you know, I did a year in England with Tony. And so when we were in this, that's when we started talking about that. And that was probably about 6 years ago now, when we were talking about that. But the interesting part of it is that I feel like when we're working with our senses, you know, when you're getting that information and that's starting to come out there in some way, eventually, when you get that same frame of reference enough, so
Mm-hmm.
whether that be like, let's just say you're clairvoyant and I always use a beach ball as an example. Your beach ball means summer to you, or a beach ball means that they lived at the beach. You know what I mean? Whatever that frame of reference is for you, eventually that you're not going to get the beach ball anymore. You're just going to know it. It becomes a knowing. Like for me, I just know cancer. You know, they'll give me as a knowing. I know my man passed of cancer. Then I can go into more detail. I feel it's lung cancer. Do you understand that? Yes. Okay, good. Let's work there. So that's what I'm saying. I feel, you know, everything really comes through a claircognate.
Yeah, I agree.
Then our system, our energetic field brings it to wherever the medium's going to get that frame of reference.
I
Because
really, yeah,
what's the point of showing someone something if they're not clairvoyant? That wouldn't make sense. It's
yeah.
your system that distinguishes the information.
And I don't know if you know this, but I have a quiz online, like what's your clearest clair? And it's a clair quiz, and claircognizance is number one. Like over 3,000 people have taken this quiz, and and people are surprised, and clairvoyance is third. It's like it's claircognizance and then clairsentience are almost even, and then clairvoyance and then clairaudience is kind of like the results I've seen from it so far. And this is why I tell my students too. I was like, you know, you'll have all these psychic symbols and it will work until it doesn't, right? Like eventually you almost like outgrow the symbol and you just receive it in a different way. And I think now, like I'm 7 years into my development, it's like I feel like I work mostly claircognizant now, but I still have some symbols on my body that they give me around depression and aneurysm and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
same with like clairsentiently, I would get a chest pain if it was one of three things. It was like breast cancer, heart attack, or like lung cancer. And then it's like going deeper to try to discern between those three, but it typically comes through the knowing. It's like, okay, my chest hurts. I know this is where I'm going in the passing, but the claircognizance kicks in and it's like, okay, this is lung cancer, right? It's not like a heart attack. And so it is kind of like, you know, trial and error. And the biggest playground and the biggest classroom is actually doing the readings, right? But going back to the fear, there are so many people I know that study, read all the books, learn from all the teachers, and then they don't go out and do the readings because of the reputation, because of the fear of being wrong is number one. It's like, what do you say to people and help normalize this so that they know, like, yeah, you're going to be scared, but you still got to do the thing.
Yes. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. That's why I say, you know, like, so I do this mentorship, right? And so in the mentorship, the mentorship was designed, like, I felt like, you know, everything I do, I feel like I'm checking in with spirit. I'm asking them to help me in some way. And so one day I felt I started teaching, and it took me a long time to even start teaching. I didn't want to teach there. And it wasn't that I didn't want to teach. I just didn't feel like I wanted to develop myself more as a medium, but I also wanted to get out there in the public more. So I wanted to be a medium before I started to teach there, and know my stuff. You know what I mean? Like know how it works for me and my experience in that way. But you know, in the mentorship, it's funny because, you know, I give them monthly goals where they have to have so many practice readings a month. Then during the week, I give them a weekly exercise and pair them off with someone. Then on top of it, we also do I get on with them and they do a reading with me on Zoom, and I can help them to push them and, no, go more here, there's more here, and whatever to help expand and get more detail there in that way. And that to me is the most important thing. Like, you have to do it. I say to people all the time, overanalysis leads to paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, so I trust everything I do. I trust, right? So I trust, our whole job is to trust our feelings and emotions. You know what I mean? When we're sitting in front of someone. So in my personal life, I learned, you have to learn to do that too. So when I wasn't drawn to too many teachers. I'm not saying that I was drawn to Lisa Williams. Oddly, weird, not that oddly, that was Lisa Williams, but like my wife's a prophetic dreamer, which is weird there, and it's cool. But that's how I found Lisa Williams there. And then I worked with her, and then eventually it was Tony Stockwell. And when I seen Tony Stockwell work, I said, "Oh my God, that's how I work." There, I felt like that was like, just, he gets the information the same way there. And so, and then, lo and behold, I'm being mentored by him in England. But the point of it is, you could take, take the 10 best mediums in the world right now, and you can go to every one of those classes. But you know what? The teacher's not going to make you a medium.
Right.
Listening to lecture isn't going to make you a medium. It could help you, but the point, you have to work. But too many teachers, overanalysis leads to paralysis. Because I say to everyone, you'll get frozen, because no one has the ultimate truth. There's no one has when I start any class, any new student works with me, I tell them, I don't have the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
I don't. No one does. And so what you're hearing is an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
or how it works for them. And that's why I say, for me, I can only teach you through my experience and how it works for me there, because that's what I know. But I didn't take everything Tony would say and trust it. I trust my own inner compass, my own inner guidance. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't, throw it out. I say that to students now. If what I say doesn't resonate with you, throw it out. You know what I mean? We don't have to argue it and debate it. I'm just giving you how it works for me. And again, no one has the ultimate truth. No.
Yeah.
But you got it. But to get back to what you're saying, one second there, it's doing it. It
Yeah.
really, that's what, like, when I did the thing, it's because it's making you do it, making you work there, because through working is how I found how spirit works with me,
Mm-hmm.
and how my own patterns are set up in my work. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, they're still changing. You know what I mean? Like, we're always going to be developing, right? We're going to develop to the day we die, there. And so, I love the fact when I'll go through like a few week period of, I'll see like spirits teaching me something else, and I go through the same thing over and over in readings, and I'm like, all right, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. I understand what you're trying to teach me now there. And you'll see those patterns kind of align, but you won't see them if you're just sitting there in lecture, or afraid to do it. And it is fearful. I tell people all the time, uh, I was afraid, of repercussion. What are the people going to say about me? Like I said, I was here. How am I going to tell people I'm a medium? I was a couple months ago, I was doing drugs. They're going to think I'm just doing drugs. That whole thing, the fear of judgment there, it definitely become more acceptable. There's no
Yeah.
doubt in my mind there, but it's working. Whether you go find a circle to practice in, or you just grab some friends and be like, yo, can I practice something with you there? Let me just try something here. It's working is the way you're going to figure it
And then what do you say, like a student comes up to you and says, Anthony, I'm scared of being wrong. What do you say to that?
out. I would tell them right off the bat to take out one of those Post-it notes, the yellow note things there, and write on there, it's okay to be wrong during a reading, and say it every day for about a year, because that's what I did there. I was definitely afraid. That's why, going back to my, I do swear. So
Me too.
I'm not, I
You
won't
won't
swear in your
while you're
podcast. So
whispering.
no, I won't swear in your podcast, but I think I'm laughing because I didn't expect that Fear and Doubt video to be what it was. It was a Facebook Live in the Mediumship Development Group. I went live one night because people were asking me questions about being afraid and stuff, and that's really where I just shut it off. And I say the F-bomb so much. My wife, I came upstairs, my wife's like, maybe you don't need to say the F-bomb that much there. But so when I think back to that video, I laugh about it there. But what I'm saying is, though, is that was me, and I wrote down, it's okay to be wrong during a reading. and as an affirmation, and I said it every day for no lie a year. And that's why I canceled readings. I was afraid to be wrong. What if I can't get the person that they want? What if I'm no good? What if they laugh at me? You know what I mean? And then there's a whole nother side to that too. When you start charging money, more, more fear comes in.
Yeah.
Even when you increase your pricing at some point, more fear. Am I giving them the worth? Like your mind is a liar. That's the thing too. So but the number one thing I would say is write out an affirmation. It's okay to be wrong during a reading, and
I
say it
love
every
that.
day.
I think that's great because I usually say to people, I'm like, here's a helper. You're going to be wrong, and you're going to be wrong a lot, but you're going to be right a lot too. And you just got to celebrate the success and just know that you did the best you could, right? Well
Yeah.
intended, but I'm going to add to that. I'll be like, and set up this affirmation because I find that is like the number one fear I hear from people. What's the number one fear you see come up in the students you work with? Because you work with a lot of students now.
Yeah. It's probably that. It's probably the fear of being wrong. You know what I mean? And or I want to say probably the fear of not connecting to the person that they want to connect with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the judgment in one's eyes. You know what I mean? Not from the medium's perspective, but they're afraid of what the sitter
Yeah.
may say.
I remember early on, like I kept a real detailed online journal of my whole development journey, like some of the most boring things and then some of the most phenomenal things. So to do my podcast episodes, I actually go back to that online diary. Like what was I afraid of like those first few years? And I remember my prayer before, setting the intention to work with spirit would be, I want the spirit that I can connect with the easiest to come through first. Because I was that scared of like sucking and not getting good evidence because everything was about evidence, evidence, evidence. And then I want to talk to you about that too. But I actually started transcending my fear and just saying, you know what, like, cause that's my ego. I'm actually starting my reading from a place of fear, making sure I don't fail. And I started sending that fear and making my intention. I want the spirit who they want to hear from the most to come through first. Like really, like, I don't care if I suck. I don't care if I stumble. It's like, it was a big shift for me in my development to go there and put it all on the line. And now so often I get who they wanted. I'll say, was there someone else you're hoping to hear from? Nope, you brought them through. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Right.
Yeah. That's like the best feeling. Like, oh, good.
I'm like, yes, okay, you nailed it. Because
Yeah.
it still feels good, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's hard to really separate your ego fully and this work because you want to do good. And, the people who are the most scared are usually the ones who desire the most to help, right? And do well in
Yeah.
the work.
Yeah. I always remember a quote from John Edward. And he said, you need enough ego to do the work,
Mm.
but anything too much of it will kill the work.
Yes.
And that just always has stuck with me, because you need some sort of ego to do the work. There will be people that aren't happy. There will be people that come along and think that mediumship is like, I have a phone to my ear and I should be able to tell you every single thing, the name, the blood type and whatever else that they think there. And that's just not how mediumship works. You know what I mean? So you do need some sort of ego, but anything over is too much for the work.
Definitely. What was I just going to say around that? Okay, I have a question about like evidence and messages.
Yeah.
So, where do you find the balance in that? Because I find with a lot of people I'm mentoring, and I was like this too, where you give like too much evidence and then it kind of like falls flat. And then I used to have to get reminded by my clients, do they have something to say? Is there a message? I'm like, right. Okay, let me tap into the message because what we see on TV, what we see, the old Gordon Higginson like demonstration, like Jerry Fitzgerald of 123 Domino Street, right? It was like the evidence was just so solid. And now I'm finding people want like the feels more than even the evidence. So what have you seen with this transition and how do you balance the evidence and the messages?
Yeah, see, I'm like you in that sense, where I would say that, a big part of my work, because of my skeptical mind, is evidence, right?
Mm.
And early on, that's really, it was just I would always hammer evidence. And there's times still to this day where I'm hammering just evidence there. And I almost have to remind myself during the reading. So like, all right, let go here. What do they want to say? Or what do they want to bring up? there, because I feel like because of my skeptical mind, I'm constantly like in that thing of, all right, here, it's not that I'm trying to prove, it's just that let me give you more evidence. Let me give you more evidence there. And that's all I was until I met Tony. And that's why I always say when I did my time with Tony in England, I remember he would always, I would kind of just rifle off evidence. And not, again, it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just giving evidence. But I remember he would come by and say, Anthony, your evidence is great. What do they want to say? Let go, and I would be like, oh, there. And so that kind of taught me the balance, And so now for me, I would say, my readings are 45-minute readings. I would say like in the reading, I'm like 20, 25 minutes of pretty hardcore evidence. And then I kind of let go and allow there. But it's not like 25 minutes of evidence, then just let go. Cause it's, you have different communicators. So let's say dad come through, I give evidence for 10 minutes and then I give what dad wants to say for maybe 5 minutes, you know what I mean? And then mom comes in here and then, you know what I mean? And then I work with her with evidence, and then she wants to say. But in the process, I think of the reading, I think it's, it's probably a half and a half. And, you know, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I was talking about this and then I felt the spirit world there. And that's where I go back to the surrender, because
Mm.
I feel as though they know what their loved ones need, if it's strict evidence or if it's more of a message. But
Right.
it's me as the medium that's getting involved
Right.
into the reading and trying to just keep giving evidence. Whereas, I was saying this to someone. I don't know if I was doing this on a live with Cindy Kazo or someone I
I
was
saw
talking
that.
about,
Yeah.
but I was doing a reading a few months back during the pandemic. It was over Zoom, and this woman came to me. She's been to other mediums. I've never read for her. I read for her. I bring her through her mom. I was given evidence. I couldn't, I brought up about it was breast cancer. I brought up that it was actually in her left chest, her left breast where the cancer started. This whole really, and this woman is like, you know, and, I was like, what's going on here? And it was about 30 minutes into the reading, or about 25, 30 minutes in the reading. I stopped for it and oh my God. And all the, it's just like the mom came over me, you know what I mean? Like, and really started to give me what she wanted to say.
Mm.
And it was about how the woman that I was reading for was a nurse practitioner. So I don't know in Canada, but in here they could also, nurse practitioners, I guess, they're like doctors, you know what I mean? Like they could write prescriptions and healthcare plans or whatever. And
Mhm.
so she was her mom. She was the one that was responsible for her mom, or she felt that there, and she made all the decisions. And so the mom gave me around that about her still feeling guilt, and that's it. The lady just lost it. She
Yeah.
started crying, and all again, and she was like, I've been waiting for a year for someone to say this. Like her mom was telling her to it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
And yet I'm giving all this great evidence, you know what I mean? And again, it was like another lesson back from the spirit world. Like,
Yeah.
just shut up and listen to us. You know what I mean? Like, we know what we need to say. We know how much evidence is needed per person. I see that more. Someone brought up, that's where I started to think about that. I was in Phoenix, Arizona doing a demonstration. And afterwards, I was there for teaching, and then I did a dem one night. And afterwards, and the next day we were talking about it with students, and someone said, it really is interesting because the way that you work, you just allow, I don't ever, I don't, most of the time, I don't close the link actually, So the spirit world will give me another piece of evidence to get me to the next person, whatever happened to shut down and reopening
Yes.
there. It kind of just keeps flowing. And so someone said, one of the students had said, it's like, you just trust them and they're the ones that are doing the work. Well, yeah, that's it. You know what I mean? Like I believe they know what evidence they need for their loved ones, but not to say you're going to get a skeptic and no amount of evidence is going to be good enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I wonder from the
The
other
cynic.
world if the spirit world gets annoyed, like, come on, you know what I mean? Like about their own loved ones. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I
No,
think it's a perfect blend. I do think it's a good blend, like a potentially half and half there. Some people may not say that. I would I would beg to differ, just because in my work and in the clients that I deal with, they want to hear. They want to hear, does my dad see that I had a baby?
Yes.
Does my
100%.
mom know that I put her ashes underneath her picture there in the living room?
Yeah.
Does my mom know that we made ornaments and the kids, all three kids, hung them up on the tree for her this year? Besides that, she was 65. She had lung cancer. She was 5'11", type B blood. No, I'm just joking with you guys. But all very, listen, it's all very wonderful evidence.
Yeah.
But to me, there's got to be more. That's the thing with mediumship is like, there's got to be more. There's got
Yeah.
to be more. And I believe that they'll talk if we let them.
Definitely. And I want to ask one more question about the evidence. I love everything you say, totally resonate with it. I agree too. It's like discerning almost like what the client needs within that. Like I've pumped out evidence and it hasn't landed. I'm like, okay, they're here for something else. Sometimes it's psychic. Sometimes they're like, I don't even want to hear from my loved one. It's like, that's when it's like a slog. I'm like, why is nothing flowing? I'm like, oh, they actually want psychic. Okay. Right. And it's such a ride being a medium, right?
Yeah.
And trying to transcend the people pleasing as well. And what you were saying too is like, I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've had as a developing medium is like, and it only happened for me last year 6 of my development, year 3 as a professional medium, where I had to get out of my own way, like literally get out of my own way. That was the hardest thing. And like leaning back into service, like this isn't about you, Danielle, like get out of your way. Right. And then things just started kind of like flowing a lot more and actually becoming more fun.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
so the I names evade me. I am not a name medium.
Yeah.
How do names come to you? I'm going to ask
Most,
every medium this.
yeah. Most of it's funny because I was just going to add something to what you just said about names, by the way. But
Okay,
I
cool.
no. Yeah,
Great.
we'll answer in this. That's why when you brought names, like, oh, perfect. She's gonna bring. That's great. So either clairaudiently, I hear them, or I just know them. It's
Okay.
really odd. I just know them claircognitantly. And again, I'm gonna go back and saying it the same way. Like my experience was, I was never a name medium either, right? And I was doing a lot of dems and stuff like that, and it was just always the evidence was always good. I would get the relationship or whatever else there, but I wasn't like the greatest piece of evidence there. Like I brought through a name there until I started working with a woman named Cindy Keza, and Cindy um, is like a name queen, and so when I started, me and her started doing dems together, and I was like, what the heck, like what's going on here? And I would watch her when I would go, and then she would go, and I would be like, I gotta start working on my names. So I had to create that intention really to start working on them more, and then I started to study names. I just started to study names because again, Gordon Higginson says it best: mediumship is a mirror of the mind. If you are
Mm,
not good with names now, you're not going to be good with names in general. You know what I mean? If you ask someone, you go to a place and mom was like, yeah, my name's Tom. Oh, great. And then an hour later, you're like, wait, what was that guy's name again?
that is me.
That's the names are in the forefront of your mind. It's,
Right.
mediumship is a mirror of your mind.
Yes.
It's so hard for the spirit world to potentially link in there and pull out that frame of reference there when you constantly forget names. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm like that too. I started studying names. I had to start studying names, and so I went and I found the top 100 names of male and the top 100 names of female through the Social Security Index in the United States of America, and started doing it. I laid them out, A's, B's, and then went all of them, and I started studying them, and then I would play a game, with my wife. You know what I mean? She would ask me, and I would have to call them out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I started to get better with names. Now, not to say definitely, I definitely have gotten better. Not to say that I get every name. I don't there because again, sometimes it's not needed. That's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
trusting the process. But here's the other part of this. So it's twofold. One, I don't believe that the name is the greatest piece of evidence anymore. I don't.
It isn't. Old
Technology.
spiritualist thought for sure,
Yeah.
right?
In a dem, I could say that could be a little different. Okay. In a dem, there. If you're already working with the person, it's not like, because a skeptic would say, if you just call out, I have a Bob with me, or I have someone's going to raise their hand. The chances are, I'm talking about if you're working with it and then you get the name of the loved one and, oh my God, that's still, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's excellent. And even if you get a name, it's great. What I'm saying is though, from the sitter's perspective, the name, here in America, I gotta say 50 to 60% of people that see me already think that mediums look them up.
Yeah, totally.
So that name is available. You know what I mean? Like I went one time, one of my students said, you got to get this reading from this medium. And so I was like, really? Like, oh, it was so different. It was, it was different. It wasn't that traditional evidence. I said, all right. I went online, I put the appointment, and I put my name in there, but I was giving it to my wife there. But we went and put in her name, and all these things came up with all her past relatives,
Right.
to the fact where she actually went and contacted those places to take them all. She didn't want all that stuff on there. So it's out there. That's what I'm saying. In a one-on-one, 60% of people that come and see you think that you've looked them up already
Yeah.
there in that sense or in that way. And the other part of it is, and so there's the other part of developing the names though as the medium. Besides studying them, once you get the name, it's just like any other frame of reference. Once you get that name, like you actually get the name there, it becomes burned into your subconscious in some way, and it becomes easier, and you'll get that name the next time, and then you'll get the name the next time, and it's like, oh, there's a Michael here with me, you know what I mean? Because you've gotten Michael so many times now. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah.
like anything else there. Now, there are some people that are just really fabulous at names there, and maybe they don't put any effort. For me, I can tell you now, I put effort. Like, mediumship didn't come easy to me. I remember I typed something into I have a international mediumship development group on Facebook. And I put something up there as an exercise or something, and someone came and was like, I don't have to do any of this stuff. I always get it. And I was like, all right, good for you. Not for me. I work at my mediumship. You know what I mean? I have, I don't have them down here, but I have binders of frames of references. You know what I mean? And I'll still go back. I'll go, I got a couple big demonstrations coming up, or I'll pull that thing out earlier in the day and start looking through my frames of references. You know what I mean? To just inundate my mind. Because again, mediumship is a mirror of the mind. So if
I
you're
love
bad
that.
at names, make intentions to try to start remembering names.
Well, I
That
think what
all of a
I'm
sudden
going
you
to
want.
do is, because I am one of those people who will be introduced to someone and 5 minutes later I forget their name. And actually, the first thing I do in a reading is saying, can you spell me your first and last name? Because by the time I check my calendar, who's next, and they sit down in front of me, I've already forgotten. So I'm just going to practice by remembering the names of the people who I actually meet in life.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what's funny too? Because you don't really realize, again, when you come into that, like we do so much things on unconscious, programming, where you look at Facebook. How many times you scroll through Facebook, you see the post and who's posting it, but you don't realize the name.
Right. You look at the
You
little
may
icon.
see, you just know who it is. Like you've done it and you're like, okay, I'm just scrolling through. But if you actually just stopped and said, Brian, Elisa, you know what I mean? If you actually did that, that would help the developing, helps us there to develop the better names, because again, it's bringing more into your awareness
Love
there
it.
in that way.
Great advice. I have one final question for
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much for your time. Have you seen an evolution in mediumship, like based off the person's need? It's very sexy on TV right now. And so there's like a whole nother level of expectations that sitters are coming with. But like mediumship as like a whole, how we work as a collective, how we actually understand our individuality within it now. Like, have you seen an evolution of mediumship?
It's interesting because that's my question I always ask people. So I know I asked Tony in that clip there, and Tony was 30 years or something, when he started there. So in my very short time here of from my beginning to now, which is just 10 years really, I would say it's what I've been talking about and what I was trying to talk about with Tony there. I believe, it's my belief, and that there is, mediumship has to evolve, and it goes into the line what I was just saying. I believe that mediumship is evolving, or the spirit world is bringing us to what do they see of our world now,
Mhm.
meaning things that the sitters just did, because they know that evidence is being tarnished now by the internet, there or technology, and it's only going to get worse. You think about, I have 3 children there. If Mila, my oldest, is 7 now, since Mila's been born, she's been put on Facebook
Yeah.
there. We posted her, my wife's posted her. So in 20 years time, let's just say, knock on wood, I'm still here, but in 20 years time, Neil's now 27. She goes to you, finds you as a medium, not you, this bad example to use you, but a medium that's kind of shady there, and they pop in a picture, they find Mila, they pop in a picture, every single thing of her whole life is now going to be online. And so I believe the spirit world knows that clearly, right? And I feel like some of our evidence potentially has to shift. Now, I'm not saying all of it. I'm saying, yes, how they passed, who they were, personality, characteristics of who they were in life, if they had any weird quirks, any crazy kind of ailments in their body, or lost finger. What all that stuff is so very important still. But what do they see of our world now? Things that have the sitter just did.
Yeah.
There, because I feel like it shows the sitter that their loved one is still involved in their life, and they are truly watching over us in some way, and that they're still there. They're still there watching us there. Because any other way, like I said, I want to, again, 60% of people are I don't want to say skeptical. They're open-minded, but have a skeptical side to them, because of technology. Now it's just easy. It's easy to be able to put someone's name in and find all this information about it. So when you start bringing up things that they just did that no one could know, like I don't know,
booking a trip,
or again, my experience a couple weeks ago, I was reading for a woman, and I kept bringing up about an angel figurine being put down, or someone was buying an angel figurine. I thought she took it from the woman's house, her mom's house. Or it was the mom that was coming through, and she's like, no. I'm like, are you sure? Like, I feel like you just took an angel figurine, but like someone's doing something with it, or they're removing. She's like, no, but I'll find out. She sent me an email like, I don't know, about after that weekend. I was reading was on Thursday. She went to her dad's house, and sure enough, that day of the reading, which was even crazy because lo and behold, she had no idea, but her dad was looking at angel figurines to put on the tombstone. You know what I mean? And on top of it, she said it was really actually odd because they're I don't know. They're very Jewish there. And I guess the angel thing wouldn't go with that religion. That's how she said it in the email. I don't really know Judaism there. So, but that, she was like, I can't believe, that was like, wow, I just can't believe that. You know what I mean? So great validation comes from and now she's more of a believer, not like she wasn't a believer, but of what's happening right now, someone that just did, because they're able to see that, and potentially whatever else. I just feel like some of the evidence has to change in that way. We can't, and here's the other part of this. Let me say this. I actually think differently than traditional, I don't know, spiritual national union, or traditional mediumship in some way. When they, because people, there's a whole debate about potentially, that's psychic info. You're getting psychic info, and like we made psychic a dirty word there. I don't believe that. I've heard people say as soon as you start talking about the sitter, that becomes psychic. No, I don't believe that in a second. This is where I'm saying I go completely opposite. If you just give me evidence, if I come to you and you only give me evidence about, I'm going to say my dad, even though my dad's still here, my father, you give me his name, you give me who he was, his characteristics, they're all good stuff, good evidence, but you keeping them dead, like in the past. Why are you not linked into me psychically? How could you say that that's not psychic? Everything is my dad's name is in my memory, my aura. I'm not saying you're reading my mind, but it's in my psychic perception, right? How he died, our memories together, those are all psychic. You see what I'm saying? So they're technically, that all that information is within my etheric body or subconscious that the reader could. The intelligence of the spirit world, to me, is proven to me when they bring up something that I just did.
Yes.
That's how I could say, yeah, oh, yes, I know that person's looking down upon me. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and that no one else could know. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like there's a small shift there. And I'm not saying again that traditional evidence is going away. No, we absolutely need evidence. If anything, Lisa Williams, when I do events, go on tour with her, she'll say, Anthony could be too evidential. She calls me to. So evidence is absolutely critical, but I do believe that it's shifting a little bit. And I believe that evidence of what do they see of our world now, again, things aren't posted on Facebook, there, to the smallest little silliest thing. Like you were just at Home Depot buying new paint for the wall for the living room. Would you understand that? Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. Was it Home Depot? Yeah, I was at Home Depot. I was buying paint, but you put the paint can back because you decided, yeah, I put it back. You know what I mean? Like that type of evidence, people are like, how do they know that? How could, when someone says, well, mediums just look them up, they're going to go, no, it's impossible. My dad brought up about how I literally was at Home Depot. No one knows that. Did you post it on Facebook? No, I didn't post that on Facebook. That to me is that's where I feel some changes, or I know within my own work, it's going to that place
Yeah.
there. But still need evidence. I'm not saying that we don't need it. We absolutely need it there. But when I like, they're not dead. They're not. We don't die. We're just in another world. And so I don't think that they're like when we just talk about them in the past.
I love that. And that was something I learned. I took a few Tony retreats, and that was like one of the things I carried, probably like the biggest aha moment was asking the world of spirit, what have you seen?
Yeah.
And once I moved past the identifying information, like, okay, you know who this is, I can leave that identifying evidence alone. I then step into, okay, what have you seen and who are you with? And like, what do you do? And kind of like tap into that with like a blend of messages and stuff. But yeah, I love that. I love all that philosophy. That's
Because
wonderful.
even so, like, eventually, and you may have this now, but eventually that you'll have clients that come back to you, even if it's once a year, they want to check in. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I have now clients that I've read for 5 or 6 times. They've come once a year over the past 5 or 6 years, and so you start to know those. You know what I mean? It's not like you're communicating with them, but when they come, you read 5, 6 times from them. You know who their dead people are. You know what I mean? And so in that process, like, what do you think you're going to talk about in the reading? It's not going to be that all that evidence that you've already brought up, how they passed, what their hobbies were, lung cancer, they had blue eyes, he passed at 77. This is your dad there. I know that it started at prostate cancer, but it switched. You've said all that over the years. What are you going to talk about? They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about, I seen what you're doing. I seen recently you had my picture in your hand, but you dropped and the glass broke. Is that true? How do you know that? I know that you were just at the store today buying a mirror. Oh my God, just today. Yeah. Someone said to me, I had to go, you know what I mean? Like, what they want to talk, I feel like the spirit world wants to talk about, especially, like I said, once you've said all the evidence, and you're not going to do readings again and give them your client the same information again. What's the point of that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They want to say something, and I believe that they see exactly what's happening there in our world, and they want to talk about
Love it. And that's one of the things I've seen a lot of students, like the hardest thing to grasp is that you're talking to souls, and like you can ask them questions and like be curious about their lives. Like you wouldn't just let your friend drop an apple and say, like, just leave it. You'd be like, what's with the apple? Right? Like you got to show some curiosity with them as well,
it.
and ask some questions to get more information. Some people just sit there like, I'm ready to receive. I'm only going to say what I receive.
Yeah. It's funny because there's like, going back to your names, right? And like what you just said, like I say this, like I try to simplify mediumship in the sense of where it's like if you're having a phone conversation with someone in the spirit world, right? Whereas I see a lot of times earlier on, mediums, they'll get a name, they'll give a name, it doesn't make sense, right? To the sitter. No, I don't know that person. And they just, oh, okay. And they move on. They never prod or try to figure out the name. Like, well, wait, hold on there. Cause I'll get it sometimes now. I'll be like, I'll know that the person's alive. Like, who's Chris? But they're alive here in our world. Oh, that's his brother. Oh, okay. Hold on. There. The reason why I'm saying this is, right, people will like leave it. Oh, he just wants to say hello, or he's just mentioning his brother. And then they move on. And I'm like, no, if I was calling Danielle right now and I'd be like, Danielle, I got to tell you about your brother. right? You'd be like, what about my brother? You know, so as a medium, that's how I am. If I get a name, hold on. Wait, who's Thomas? No, I don't know Thomas. No, I feel like Thomas is still alive. Oh my God. Yeah, that's my cousin. Would you understand that Thomas's mom just passed recently? Yeah, my aunt. Hold on, I have your aunt coming through and she's giving me you know what I mean? Like there's and it might not be, it might be just because Thomas, oh, there's a big congratulations I feel around Thomas there. Your dad wants to congratulate him there. And I feel like, did he just become a police officer? Yeah, oh my God. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't stimulate, think of it that way. Like if me and you called each other and I gotta, or I gotta talk to you about what, you know, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, if we simplify in that way, then I think we could realize like, yeah, there's a communication happening here. We can ask.
Totally. I could imagine like my Nana, she was so sassy. She'd be like, there, well, ask me something. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
cool. Well, this was such an energizing conversation. I so appreciate you coming on. I know people are going to love it. And how can people find you, follow you, work with you? I know that you offer some classes and stuff, so I'd love for you to just plug that.
Yeah, I have my website's anthonymrocka.com. So my name's actually on the screen there. People don't can
I'll
never,
link it in the show notes too.
yeah, they never can spell my last name. There. Instagram, same thing, Anthony Mrocka. You're gonna probably yell, well, you know, I'm literally gonna yell at me, but people may. I actually do offer classes, but I never update my website. So I will say this, I do have an international mediumship development group. It's called International Mediumship Development Group on Facebook there, and anyone could join there. That's where I usually post my classes, and they usually get filled up there. I don't believe, it's just for me, I don't have these really huge where you get lost classes, so I kind of keep the numbers down, so they do kind of fill up there. But I do an intermediate class usually once or twice a year. I just started running some 4-week circles where on Zoom. It's not a group, it's a group, but we're using breakout rooms. So I'm just giving straight kind of like we were talking about, you got to do it. Exercises, I'm throwing people into their own rooms, they're practicing, then they're coming back and we talk about it. I just started doing some of those, but I know those filled up already too. So hopefully in the future, maybe around September, I'll have some more time to do some more of them there. But yeah, the best way I would say is probably in that group if you're a developing medium there, or Instagram.
Awesome. I love it. And we're like meme brother and sisters on there, just like posting the memes, keeping
Yeah.
spirituality light and fun. And I love it. I love following your Instagram. So thank you so much, Anthony.